Hey, good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome into the VolQuest Mailbag Podcast. It's presented as always by our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions. Free estimate, 865-524-5888 or online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Got a whole lot of questions to answer today. I give you one guess what the majority of these questions are going to be about. Austin Price, Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs. I am Eric Kane. Before we kind of dive into these questions, Austin, real quick, it's been an eventful week to begin the week here for Tennessee, as it looks like another NCAA investigation is coming along, and at least Tennessee has some practice with it, right?
Yeah, and Tennessee's known about this coming for a while, even dating back before the Citrus Bowl back in the month of December. I mean, the NCAA was on the campus interviewing student athletes, Hubs, back in the late summer, early fall, and so I mean, like they knew that this was always a possibility, and then they kind of found out, hey, the stuff could be coming, and then the NCAA leaked it. Let's call it what it is. I think that the NCAA knew Tennessee was going to push back, which they have, and they leaked out, to kind of get out ahead of Tennessee before they could push back at all, to kind of, I think, add into the, kind of the public smear campaign, so to speak, and to hurt Tennessee from an optics standpoint. But I really don't think it's, hurt Tennessee that much, because I think recruits, they see Tennessee as the school right now that, is behind kids getting theirs. And, you see a lot of fans and media out there that are standing with Tennessee, not only, just for the sheer fact that, for the optics, the opposite way.
Well, I mean, I know we got to get to a bunch of questions, so I'm not gonna bully pulpit here and get on a long-winded deal about this. But the reality is, for everybody involved, anchor in. I mean, settle in. This one's not going away anytime soon. There's not going to be a quick resolution on this deal. We'll see what happens in terms of a letter of allegations. Tennessee's drawn their line in the sand. It's very clear they're not interested in moving that line. Where does the NCAA go from here? Time will tell what their response is going to be, and how this is going to be perceived by them, and where it's going to go. There's a lot of moving parts to this deal, and it's not heading towards a short, quick resolution, which is something that Tennessee's coaches and a lot of people need to be prepared for, because these are questions that are going to be out there and going to be lingering out there for a while, Eric.
So a lot of questions about the impending NCAA investigation as we move on throughout this VolQuest Mailbag podcast. But first, Rob Lewis, let's start with some basketball. Lakers 0411 says, do you think other players are becoming too dependent on Dalton Connect to generate offense for this team? Against South Carolina for the most of the second half, it looked like a lot of standing around waiting for Dalton to do Dalton things.
I mean, I don't know what Josiah needs to average, but yeah, I mean, everybody in the team, it was, last night was as bad as has been, but I mean, there's been a little bit of that, but last night in the second half, it was just atrocious. I mean, Santiago hit a three with 17 minutes and 47 seconds left. Josiah hit a shot in the lane with 9 minutes and 58 seconds left. Those are the only two shots anybody from Tennessee hit in the last 18 minutes that didn't have the Connect on the back of their jersey. Yes, Tennessee, emphatically yes. Tennessee needs some guys to step up.
Well, and here's where I am on it, Rob, and maybe I'm wrong here. Look, I'm looking at it as a bit of a too simplistic approach, but I'm going back to something you wrote in the 3-2-1 maybe 2 weeks ago, and that is how the face of this team is different than what everybody thought it would be. And a lot of people are talking about, how many points does Josiah Jordan James need to average? They've got to get him going back on track. Here's the reality for me, Rob. Jonas Adu and Zakai Ziegler can't go 2 of 14 from the floor. I mean, look, they don't have to have 10 points a night, 8 points a night from Josiah Jordan James, but they can't go 2 for 14 with the other two key cog pieces to this basketball team that go with Dalton Connect. And over the course of the last 6 weeks, it's been Connect, Jonas Adu, Zakai Ziegler. And if they're going to make a deep run in March, to me, it's those three that have to carry the load for Tennessee offensively. And you just can't have Zakai throw up an offer and Jonas go 2 for 8 and miss 4 layups, right?
Oh, no. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're 20 plus, games, and there are 10 games left after this weekend in conference play. Yeah, I mean, Josiah is not. I mean, stop looking at that for offense. I mean, if he gives you something, great,
right,
fantastic. But like you're saying, the 3-headed monster, it's been established. It's Dalton, it's Sankey, it's Jonas. And I don't worry at all about Sankey jumping back. He had a bad game against South Carolina. Bad. Knowing that kid, I would buy stock as a guy Ziegler in Rupp Arena Saturday night. Maybe he'll play bad, but it's not going to be something that lingers for a month or 2 months, like we've seen with some other guys on the team. Jonas, I'm not as sure about. I'm not being critical. I'm just saying Zakai's got a body of work. I mean, what's going to happen there. Jonas has been a big part of this team a big part of the offense, let me say, for 6-8 weeks. That one, I think the jury's still. He had a bad game against South Carolina. He'd played at an all SEC level for 3 or 4 weeks before that. Does he bounce back? I 100% know the guy's going to bounce back. But to your point, Hubbard, Jonas, we got to see it.
Here's the other. I know we got a bunch of NCAA stuff. I don't know how many more basketball questions. To be honest with you, I've not looked at the post to see what kind of mailbag questions we're dealing with today. But one quick thing, Rob, I was a little surprised that Rick Barnes was almost a little defensive about his defense last night, talking about, or Monday night, Tuesday, whatever night it was, talking about, we held them under the goal. The goal is 69 points.
65
or 65 points, excuse me. I just didn't think defensively. Look, you're going to get into a turn, and I'm put this on the board on Wednesday morning. You're going to get into a game in a tournament where points are going to be hard. You look at it, nobody's run through 6 games and averaged 85 points a game, and that. You're going to get into one of those ugly, nasty, eyeball-piercing basketball games where nobody can score. Your defense has to hold up. Tennessee gave up points on 7 of Mississippi or South Carolina's last 9 possessions in the final 5 minutes of that game. That you got to fix that going into tournament play, right? That to me, there's 2 lessons that has to be learned from this game. 1, Ziegler and Nadeau can't no-show, and 2, defensively, you're going to have a night where it travels and carries for you in tournament play. Fair or not fair?
Hubbard, I just don't worry about this team's defense. I just don't. South Carolina shot 34% last night. I get what you're saying. It's a great point. At the end of the game, when Dalton scores 13 points in the final 3 minutes, Tennessee gave up points at the end. But man, on a night when they score 59 and lose at home, defense, and I'm just not pointing my finger on that end of the court. I'm just not. They're so bad offensively, so bad. They scored 85, 91, and 90 points at home in 3 SEC games.
I agree the storyline is offensively, but I also look at in the last 5 minutes, South Carolina got 3 wide open looks at 3-point shots because they gave up straight line drives down the middle of the paint. And if you get into a game where it's a possession by possession deal down the last 5 minutes, you got a guy goes bananas, Austin, and connect, scoring 13 points in 5 minutes of play or 3 minutes, whatever the number ends up being. But you gave up points on. You only got 2 stops in the last 5 minutes of the game. It's hard to come back and win when that happens. Is my point. When I think big picture of where everybody wants this team to be in March.
Well, that and at the end of the day, South Carolina made their free throws and Tennessee didn't. Tennessee put them on the line. Tennessee put Tennessee in a position where if South Carolina would miss free throws, they'd have a shot. And that kid stepped up there and knocked 4 straight and was trash talking, doing every bit of it. And I just think when you look at this team last night, I don't think you can just wash it. I think it's got to stay with you to remember how crappy you played. But at the end of the day, could Tennessee have played any worse? All the foul shots they missed, all the layups and bunnies they missed, and yet they still were in that game. To Rob's point, the defense kind of kept them in it. The crowd implored. Rob, you were there. The last 7 minutes, the crowd kept trying to give Tennessee some juice. They kept trying, and they kept trying. And every time, to Hubbs' point, they would overextend and then give up a straight line drive. And that kid from the corner looked like, but this, and no one will know this unless you're from Rogersville, it looked like Ryan Lawson kicking it to Sandy Jackson in the corner for Cherokee shooting threes back in the late 90s. That's what that looked like. And so, again, I think you're both right. I think you the defense, I don't worry about it much, but they're late. They didn't give themselves a chance when the crowd tried to get loud and give them a reason to make something happen.
All right, let's move on to BDB 88. It was made mention. Sorry, move my microphone. It was made mention in one of the war rooms that Chop was on the road recruiting in place of Willie Martinez. Is there an explanation on why this has happened? Willie Martinez, Brent got hit there in bowl practice, had to have surgery, so he's not been able to fly here of late. And because of that, Chop has been out on the road recruiting.
Yeah, he got hurt. He actually got hurt in a home visit, and ended up having to have a procedure, and has not been on the road essentially since the first week of December. AP, right?
He's out now, though. He's
back
out.
now.
He's back out this week. Chop's back off the road. Willie is out this week. And what happened was he got hurt. He fell on some stairs during an in-home visit with Boo Carter and messed his knee up, had to have surgery, and then got hit. I thought it was at the bowl game. It actually was back in Knoxville right before they left.
Bowl practice.
Yeah, correct. And he waited until after the bowl game to have the second. So he had to have his second surgery. But he is back out this week on the road. I'm not sure he's 100%.
So did he fly to Orlando, AP? Do we even know that?
What's that?
Did he fly with the team to Orlando?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was more. It wasn't about he was not allowed to fly. It was just more about making 7 stops in in one day on a recruiting trail is different than flying to Orlando and getting settled in for the week. So it wasn't
getting off a commercial airliner ain't exactly a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
No. All right, let's move on to Atheron. He's got a couple here. How does the NCAA think they can do anything to enforce what happened before they had rules in place? It's $1 million question, right, AP?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the NCAA is trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube. You're not doing it. Like, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, like, but they're trying to justify the infractions committee, however, they're trying to justify their existence. They're trying to justify the paycheck. And so how do you do that? Well, you got to come up with something. And so Tennessee's the easy target because, people talked about that Nico deal, blah, blah, blah. And it's not surprising. They're going to go after more than just Tennessee. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they come out later this week and there was more news on another team. But at the end of the day, I think all you're going to see is what you've seen from Tennessee is pushback. I think no matter who they go against, schools are going to push back. There's going to be people joining the lawsuit that the Attorney General of Tennessee and Virginia filed on Tuesday or Wednesday. And, I just think you're going to continue to see the same playbook from schools, universities, and states going forward.
Well, and Rob, when the NCAA came out and said back months ago that they could basically retroactively punish somebody. They could punish somebody for the rules they violated with the new rules that they put in place, which everybody's immediate reaction is, wait a minute, how are you going to punish somebody for violating a rule when the rule wasn't there? The NCAA says, well, we can do that. And from that point on is when the narrative crept out there that at some point in time, somebody was going to sue the NCAA. And I think we're obviously at that day.
Yeah, I think the NCAA just so severely misread the room here that it almost makes me wonder if they almost didn't. I don't know. I'm giving too much credit. I just can't. I mean, I don't think they took into account how much noise was going to be out there. That wanted to make this a hill where so many people died on who were ready to get rid of the NCAA. I mean, I think this is kind of a rallying cry for people that they don't care about Tennessee one way or another, but they hate the NCAA, looking over the shoulder and, just try to dictate something that has so clearly grown beyond, what they're capable of governing. And
it blows me away, Rob, that they're going to go and, as you said, die on this hill from a standpoint of they've known that, Nico was a client of Spire, which is an agency. Everybody loves to say Spire is the collective. The Vol Club is the collective. It's two different entities. That he was a client of Spire in February. He never came in, until March, for anything that was Spire related. And every time he came to town, he met with River Media and filmed a documentary. He met with local, clothing people about designing, pajamas. I mean, like there was, they have all the receipts on all that stuff, and I can't believe they're going down this hill. Speaking of that plane, as I said on the message board on Tuesday, that was paid for. That there's a receipt. The NCAA has that receipt. Like that. That's why it's just so odd. It's just like, again, hey, we got to justify our existence. We have to justify our paycheck. We'll just do it. That's best. Let's take our shot here. I mean, like, we're going to shoot this half court shot, see if it goes in.
Let's move on now to a couple more from Outrun. I want to know about the final recruiting rankings. Are you surprised by any of those rankings? Think there are still any of these prospects that are underranked, AP or Brent?
Hubbard, like, I don't really get into the whole rankings thing that much anymore. And here's why. Because, some schools don't sign as many high school kids because they're going to take more portal kids. And so, you may sign 17 high school kids. They're really pretty good class, but because you didn't sign that many, you're only ranked 14th. And then you take 12 transfers that really
means
help
from
you.
A player perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but I mean, like, but I go back to even that. Like, I guess for me, like, you're going to have some that are ranked high, Jordan Ross, Mike Matthews. You're going to have some that drop, like a Jake Marklinger. That's natural across the board. And so, like, I don't really get into the weeds of like, oh, that guy dropped, that guy. As I said on the podcast a couple of days ago, most fans care about whether they're a 3-star, 4-star, or 5-star. Any of the kids that drop, they still have their 4th star. So I guess for my liking, I think, it all kind of evens itself out. Do you agree, Hubs?
Well, I think at this point, it's your class. It's who you have.
It is what it is.
And that's the bottom line. Is this is who you decided to go get, and I think you can always look at who did they beat out for them, and who
right.
Did the other schools want them, and then there's some other cases where you stole a kid from another state that you got on early before somebody else. I mean, there's Eric, there's a story behind every kid's commitment, every kid's recruitment, every kid's signing. And that story is beyond just the stars, it's beyond just a number ranking. But I get it. I mean, it's, everybody's looking for a quantitative measure, right? And that's the way it is. And there's always going to be moving and shaking in the rankings. And that's as you continue to evaluate people. And I think Charles Power does a great job. I think other services do a good job. I think that's why you see the composite in the industry ranking deal being such a valuable tool out there, because it gives you an idea of where everybody thinks of someone. And that kind of takes the highs and the lows out of it a little bit, if you will. But I mean, I get it. If I'm a fan, I'm looking for a qualifier, right? And the ranking is the qualifier on how good a kid, is or isn't, or is perceived to be or is perceived to not. Now, once they get here, there's a million factors that go into their development. A million. I mean, and there's things that, unfortunately, you can't put into a formula to come up with a ranking, right? I mean, Zakai Ziegler's a great example in basketball. I mean, the guy's grit is very hard to, it was hard to evaluate that, right? And as a result, the guy's a much better player than a ranking would be because he doesn't have all the measurables. But his grit overcomes some of the lack of measurables that he has. I think you see that in all sports. And that's a factor that's hard to qualify in the ranking system.
And that's right. And then I'd also, indicate next year when we're going through the 25s, like if Tennessee takes a kid and you're like, man, the kid's not ranked that high. Look at James Pierce. James Pierce was a 3-star most of the way. And then his senior tape went boom. Charles Power, 5-star. And he's played like a 5-star, right? Look at Peyton Lewis. There were other guys that the fans wanted more than Peyton Lewis, but now Peyton Lewis ends up as the 4th ranked running back in the entire class of 2024. Again, like, you got to let the whole cycle play out, because what a kid is as a junior and what a kid is after a senior year are two different things. And I think Hubs brings up the greatest point that he just noted. So, I just, don't ride the wave. And I know that's hard because you're fans, but I mean, like, be happy with who you got and look at it at the end, because you may go, wow, we actually got a really nice player there that you wouldn't have said that May.
Look at the running backs in particular. On3 put out a graphic yesterday, the top 10 running backs in the class, and look where Peyton Lewis is. He's in front of a lot of those names that Tennessee was in on, and Tennessee kind of evaluated the running back position, but elected Peyton Lewis over them, or whatever the case may be. And it looks like Peyton Lewis is one of those good evals, and good gets, and he's going to be a pretty decent player. So we'll see.
And listen, understand this. It's not perfect. It's not perfect on either
No,
side.
you're gonna miss.
It's not perfective on the school side. It's not perfect. It's not perfect on the ranking side. It never will be, and
Nope.
that's just part of it. Go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
Last question here from Math Run, Brent Hubbs. How are the rehabs going for the team?
I think good. I mean, I think guys are fine. I mean, they'll be cautious with people in spring as they should be. You got some guys who have a bunch of experience. There's no point in rushing them back. Some guys who need to work, you're going to try to give them as much as you can, but they'll be smart about it throughout spring practice, Austin.
Speaking of Peyton Lewis will not be here for spring. He's had to have a couple of different surgeries. He had a hernia, and he will not be there for spring, which makes his senior year and that 10-5 track time even that much more impressive, because he did it all with being banged up a good amount.
It's also kind of interesting, AP. I mean, depending on how he was going to get here and look in spring, I mean, you got to come in here and put in the work and show that you can do it. But I mean, Peyton Lewis is a guy that, many thought might be that third option in the backfield. If he's not here for spring, maybe that changes a little bit. Maybe Khalifa Keith gets more of a look, or, whoever.
It puts pressure on Khalifa Keith to have a good spring. It puts pressure on Deshaun Bishop
to
have a good spring. So yeah, I'm with you. Is it an end all be all? No. But I do think that it definitely, will put pressure on Peyton once he gets back, and it'll put pressure on the other two this spring to kind of see if they can kind of put themselves in a position to be number 3.
Let's get a quick word from our friends that make this coverage possible. That is Exterior Home Solutions.
Life happens, and damage to your home can be extremely stressful. That's why it's important to find someone who offers efficient, quality work with financing options. Exterior Home Solutions, they value not only family, but community. And they're who I call when life happens, and you should too.
524-5888 or online, exteriorhomesolutions.com. Big thank you to our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions. Back to the mailbag questions. We will go to Go Vols 182, timetable for the next 2025 commitment.
Well, I don't think there's anybody that's set in stone or anybody that's super, super close. But I would say sometime, probably March. I mean, is it possible that they get somebody here on a junior day this weekend and just they kind of get the warm and fuzzies and you see something happen in the next few weeks? I mean, I guess it's possible. But I would lean towards March being the next window of time that they get a commit.
Follow-up question, AP. If a kid comes to junior day, commits while there, do you think the head coach will know about that commitment?
I would say Josh Heupel will. Yes.
Whereas some other coaches might not have been aware of what was happening. Let's go ETSU Buck, who is equally loves the Tennessee Volunteers. AP's laughing now. He knows what I'm getting at. What's the latest in basketball and baseball recruiting? Well, Rob, real quick, I'll do baseball. The big time for recruiting for baseball's in the fall. They've got, according to Perfect Game for the class of 2025, Tennessee's ranked the 4th class overall. 20 high school commits, a lot of really nice players such as Cam Brumbaugh and some others. So you'll start. I mean, recruiting for baseball slowed down a little bit because it's more in the fall. But Tennessee looks like it's going to have one of the better classes in the country for the class of 2025, and Tennessee finished top 5 for the class of 2024, who's on here on campus right now as well. Muted.
How many days, guys? How many days? Basketball wise, not. I mean, if you're asking about 2024, I mean, there's not a lot going on there. I mean, there'll be a ton of stuff going on in the transfer portal with this team. But I mean, they've been active in 2025. They had an official visitor last week, Sean Abave. He's a top 100 wing from down in Clearwater, Florida, who really likes Tennessee. They had a significant unofficial visitor on Tuesday night for the South Carolina game. Darius Adams, he's a point guard, top 30 national prospect, plays prep school in Indiana. So, I mean, lots of activity in the junior class, zero activity in the 24 class. And look for a flurry of activity in the portal.
Rob, I got a quick question for you. Who's the next Dalton Connect in the portal?
There we go, Howard.
You're only going to get that question about 1 million times between now and mid-June. So who's the next Dalton Connect?
I got no clue because I mean
How do you not know
I
who
can
it
promise
is?
I can promise you nobody knew who Dalton Connect was this time.
I know.
Last year.
I know,
I
but
mean, nobody on this podcast.
Yeah, when you have one that hits like that, that's going to be the marker for everybody in
But here's
with portal guys moving forward.
Has anybody ever hit like that? I mean, a small school kid moving up. I don't think anybody's ever hit like Dalton. I mean, I don't think it's close. I mean, I don't think it's close.
No, I mean nobody has pulled a smaller school guy out of the portal and that guy be in the running for National Player of the Year. Now, I don't think Dalton's going to win the National Player of the Year honors, but he's going to be on everybody's discussion point, ballot, whatever you want to call
He'll be
it.
top 5. I mean, if there's a Heisman Trophy ceremony, he'd be there.
Yes, and I don't know of anybody who's done that in the portal with an unknown kid from a small school. Now, we've seen maybe a guy go from a Power 5 to a Power 5.
Sure, like Hunter Dickinson.
Right. But to go from what you're talking about to where he's at now, nobody's done that, in my opinion.
Sidebar, how about the quietest 31 points the other night? Because he went on that run there at the very end after the final media
points in the
timeout.
last 256.
Hey, when he made the last 3, which cut it to 2, and then, of course, they went back and made the 2 free throws to take it back to 4. That looked the way he leaned in. If you remember the Tracy McGrady Rockets game where he scored 13 points in the last 57 seconds or whatever to win that game, you can go watch that, Hubs. I know you're not. Trust me, it's worth a watch on YouTube to watch him. And he makes one leaning like he did, and I was like, holy crap! If they miss free throw and he makes another one, this place is going to come unglued.
Hey, Hubbard, after he hit that shot, I looked down at my phone. And Addison Price had sent me the Al Pacino gif from Godfather 3. Says every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in.
Buddy, you have to understand. They all know that my kids had never watched Tennessee lose in person in any sport, baseball, basketball, football. And I'm talking about Addison was at Alabama in 22. She was at A&M in South Carolina this year. Baseball, I mean, you can lose a game in baseball at any given time, right? They've never watched Tennessee lose ever. So about 5 minutes ago, she said, "Daddy, I told you I didn't want to come to this game. I just knew it was going to happen." And then she's taking such pride in her streak, right? I joked with her I was going to take her to the Alabama game this year, and she's like, "No, I don't want it to end." And she's 10, right? But watching her little fandom grow has been so fun as a dad. And she last night, 5 minutes ago, she's like, "Dad, I want to leave. If I'm not here at the end, my streak can continue." No, you were here. It counts. Literally, he makes the 3 with 39 seconds to go to make it a 3-point game. And she looks at me and she goes, "It's not over." After we were ready to bail for 5 minutes to go.
Well, I'll say this, Eric. Dalton Connect's 31 was a lot louder than the other 18 that the rest of his teammates chipped in over a 40-minute period.
The best part was Jeff Jarnigan last night doing the scores. He's like, such and such 2, such and such 2, such and such 2, and I'm like, good grief, this is brutal.
I mean, I knew that he scored. I think it was the last 13. Rob was the last 13 for Tennessee.
He scored 13 in the finals, 256.
Yeah. So I knew that happened, but it wasn't until after the game when I saw the box score. I'm like, oh crap, he had 31. I guess that's what happens when you had about 17 or 18. All right, let's move on. We got a couple minutes left. Nashville 615. Does the NCAA situation affect George MacIntyre, and is the rest of the 2025 class still good?
In my opinion, it does not affect George MacIntyre. The MacIntyres are smart people. They understand everything that's going on. Now, I can't say that for other recruits. Will it affect somebody? It probably will. Will it affect everybody? I'm going to lean no. I think most kids just don't care. Now, does it affect with a parent or two? Maybe. And that's where Tennessee's going to have to be really good at selling ice to Eskimos, right? They're going to have to be good at selling.
Well, they got to practice.
Yeah, they've got to be good at selling, the current state of everything and making people understand and basically combating the negative recruiting, because you can bet that every school is going to use this against Tennessee until it gets handled, which was earlier.
You touched on early. It's going to appeal to a lot of people, a lot of parents that keep up with stuff and are hip and know the landscape of college athletics. I think Donde's stance is going to, I want that's a place I would like my kid to go. They got his back.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing they have to combat is they have to combat perception becoming reality on them, because the one thing that people are going to talk about that's going to surface out there is people are going to talk about repeat offender status, and does that mean lack of institutional control, which lack of institutional control is going to mean postseason bans if that comes in. So kids are going to hear, well, you can go there and they defend you, and that's fine. They back you, but you're not going to play. You don't have a chance to play for a championship. And that's where Tennessee has to be good and transparent with their answers, because those are the things that people are going to try to create the perception about and negatively recruiting against Tennessee. That's what Tennessee's coaching staffs have to be prepared for.
And Brent, in Donde's letter, I mean, she pretty much hints at the lack of institutional control, right? And I mean, that's something you can point directly at.
Right. Which is why they have to have an answer to that, because if you don't, then that's going to be the festering notion that every school is going to use against a kid. And the one thing to get a kid's attention is, okay, well, you can go there, but, you're not going to be able to play for anything. You're not going to have a chance to play in a playoff and do all those type of things. That's the answer Tennessee has to be ready with when that question comes up in the recruiting trail.
On this note, GBO Farm says, if we get a lack of institutional control charge and Heupel gets a show cause, would the university essentially be forced to fire him?
Josh Heupel's name's not involved in any of this. I mean, Donde Plowman made that clear in her letter. Nobody employed by the University of Tennessee has even been questioned by anybody at this point. So to answer his question, no. I mean, unless some evidence comes to light that they haven't found over the last year and looking into this, the answer to that is no, because they've not over the last year of work or 10 months of work, whatever it's been, they haven't questioned any of those people. And on that note, some people are like, well, why wasn't this out there if they've been sniffing around? Listen, they've looked around. They look around all the time at things and nothing comes of it. So, there's no point in sounding off alarms of all kinds of crazy stuff if nothing ever comes of those things. And that's why it was quiet, because you didn't know until just recently that something was legitimately going to potentially come of it. And it's going to become the story that it's obviously become now.
Hubs, can we have a tracker and pin it on the GQ every time a coach turns in an NCAA violation of compliance, and just have that tracker up there so we can all be in the know?
They look into stuff all the time, Austin. Tennis and your internal compliance people look into stuff all the time. Yeah. That's just a given.
Can we also get a tracker on every time a kid tells the coach he may go in the portal if he don't get another $3,000 in NIL money? I mean, it's what I'm saying. Like, Hubs is right. Like,
why the 8 stories we had written just to be ready never saw light of day back in the month of December.
Yeah, and then we had to churn a couple other ones out really, really quick. Sam Smith, 2233. We'll go to a second question first. Is Maui Ahuna situation part of the NCAA investigation? At this time, Brent, I don't think so. I mean, that was Tony Vitello served a suspension. Maui Ahuna served. He missed the first 7 to 8 games of the season last year. And speaking with some people, first of this week, I don't think that's the case unless you've heard something differently.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we never saw from the NCAA if there was ever a resolution that took place, because Tennessee handled that. Tennessee made the decision to hold people from competition and, do the punishment for Tony Vitello. That was an internal thing that Tennessee did. Was that enough to satisfy the NCAA in that? I don't have an answer to that, because I don't have documentation to clearly say that case has been completely shut, or is that something that they've looked at over the course of the last year? So I don't have a clear answer to that one. So I'm skeptical to say either way on that deal.
At least from Tony's perspective, that was internal. Maui was, NCAA finally cleared him to go.
Right. Well,
after 7 or 8 games.
But remember, the NCAA has also said they're not going to punish kids over NIL. They're going to punish the other people over NIL. So I don't know if that side of it with Tony and baseball has been completely closed out.
At this time, I haven't heard anything. But again, there's things can change on a dime. Basketball question, Rob. Scout on Kentucky. Who do you believe they put on Connect since they couldn't stop Kane and Hubs from getting to the rim?
I don't know. I mean, Kentucky's bad on defense. I mean, I'm worried about Tennessee stopping them more than in Rupp on the road, way more than I worry about who's going to be on Connect. I mean, Kentucky gives up a ton of points. I mean, some of that's pace of play. I mean, they're the highest scoring team in the SEC. For the best offensive team Cal's had in a long time, at least best shooting team. I mean, they've always had some athletes and get up and down the court, but this year they shoot it well. they're scoring 84 points a game in conference play, but that's not numbers padded by playing a bunch of weak sisters of the poor. So to me, this one, Tennessee's gonna have to score in Rupp. I like Tennessee's chances to score some points against Kentucky. To me, it's about can Tennessee keep Kentucky from really getting off. Antonio Reeves, good player. Trey Mitchell, the big guy, having a great year. So I think Dalton's going to get his. Kentucky's not great defensively. That one doesn't bother me. That's all we were talking about early in the podcast. Who can score in double digits doesn't have Connect on the back of his jersey.
We'll get 2 more questions here before we end the show. Let's go to Newman 1. More chatter lately about Gaston and less about Petty. Is Petty trending away, Austin Price, or simply enjoying the process? Remembering back to a podcast when I believe it was said that he grew up a Vol fan.
He did. But, again, what you cheered for at 6 and 7 and how you approach it as a 17-year-old kid are 2 different things. And then 2, I just feel like Juan Gaston at this point is feeling Tennessee a little bit more than Josh Petty. And that's not to say that Tennessee's not hard in on Petty, because they are. I'm just telling you, I think Juan Gaston is feeling Tennessee, and Tennessee certainly likes Juan Gaston. So, again, Tennessee would love to have any of those tackles, Petty, Gaston, David Sanders. They're swinging big for all 3.
Can I just make one quick interjection, Hubbard? How great! And that's a pertinent question. But Hubbard, can you imagine 15 years ago talking about a junior trading away from Tennessee on we're recording this podcast on January 31st. We'd be getting ready for Tennessee and Florida State to host 50 official visitors this last weekend, and instead you're talking about slipping for a kid that's a junior.
To your point, I had somebody text me on Tuesday night and said, "Can you imagine if they didn't have the early signing period and this was the old signing period with what happened yesterday? Can you imagine the fallout from that?" Good Lord!
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And there really is no late signing period. They almost just need to dissolve it, because how many kids are going to sign? How many kids?
3 cycles here with Josh Heupel. I think Tennessee signed 1 AP. That was Jenkins. J.J. Crawford, the very first go around.
I don't even think, was he then, or did he sign? Was he?
I think he was a late guy. I'm not sure.
He was like a summertime edition, wasn't he?
Who
Crawford.
Crawford, wasn't he later than February?
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I know Jenkins was the February.
Yeah, you're right about him, but I thought Crawford was even later.
Yeah, I think they found Crawford in like March or something like that.
So. Last one here. It goes to AF Vol. It's an interesting question here because Greg Sankey was there for Tennessee's support during this last row with the NCAA. The question is, how much will Greg Sankey combat the investigation situation, or do you believe he will be inclined to do so? Do you think this investigation will be a catalyst to accelerate the timeline for the NCAA's demise and develop a new governing structure? Kind of 2 different things there. But on Greg Sankey, Brent Hubbs, again, he's been with Tennessee before. What do you expect his role is going to be here?
I will say, I don't know how much he'll get involved with this. I think if I'm Greg Sankey, I'm doing a lot of research, and I want to know, and I want to have conversations, and probably has already had conversations with Donde Plowman, who he's got a good relationship with, about the whole Nico deal. Because I don't know that he was comfortable with the initial news of Nico when he came out of high school, and the big deal and the big NIL deal. Remember, NIL was very different at that point in time. It wasn't commonplace. Tennessee was in a groundbreaking, Spire was doing a groundbreaking deal with Nico that nobody had seen before. And I'm not sure how comfortable anybody was with that. But I do know that Donde Plowman and Greg Sankey have a good relationship and continue to discuss things. She's very transparent with him and has always been, which is why he was there, with Tennessee, in tow with their appearance in front of the NCAA less than a year ago, AP. So, we'll see. I think he's going to always protect his member institutions, provided that he's comfortable with how his member institution has done their business.
Yeah, I think the fact that Donde came out so strong, that tells me that Greg Sankey has had conversations with her, is well aware of what Tennessee has. And I I wouldn't expect him to do a whole lot of talking. I think you would just see him kind of just observe. I think he'll just observe and kind of be in the shadows, just kind of listening, observing. I don't see him being a big talker in all this.
Here's the other thing too, and I know we're out of time here, but here's the other thing too. I mean, if this moves the yard marker, if you will, for guardrails, cleaning up, creating something for NIL, then I can't imagine that there's not going to be a lot of commissioners out there, Rob, and a lot of conferences who aren't okay with this being placed. Not necessarily for, they're all standing with pitchforks going demise of the NCAA, but they're all looking for something of some
clarity,
some kind of legislation, for some parameters for all of this and management of all this. I can't imagine a lot of them are going, yeah, we don't want change, because I think everybody wants some kind of NIL change moving forward. And if this creates that, then I think there's a lot of people happy with that.
I mean, I just think they would like clarity. I mean,
Right.
I'm not saying they want Tennessee to win or lose. I mean, I think they want. I think a lot of people in Donde Plowman's position around the country would, want there to be an established guidelines. I mean, it's just, it's just wild West has been used so much. I mean, I don't think Tennessee did anything wrong at all, and I think the NCAA really overplayed their hand. And I think you've got a lot of people out there in the college football world that just want to have some established ground rules. I think that's going to speed that up big time.
Last question actually goes to me. What was y'all's favorite part of the Donde Plowman letter to the NCAA president yesterday? I'll go first. My favorite part was she said, I would have discussed all this in person, but no, you declined an interview with me and Danny White. That was my favorite part. Rob, what was your favorite part?
And that's like, that's really hard. I think I'll go.
She called the NCAA a failure. That's a good one.
I think I will go. There are so many, but if forced to pick, I think I'll go with. I can't remember the exact wording, but 18 months ago, you held us up as an example for a shining light of all that's right, in college athletics, and now we're a cautionary tale. And the word, my favorite word was, that's inconceivable. Inconceivable when she said that. That was my favorite.
Yep, she used his own words against him, Hubs.
She did. I mean, listen. I mean, she understands leadership. She's taught it. She knows leadership. She knows what you're supposed to do in leadership. And it was a fantastic letter that was complete and utterly detailed. You know what I mean? It almost felt like a little scene out of I'll borrow a movie. Here's a movie. I won't go trace.
Here we go.
But it felt like a little bit of like Aaron Brockovich, right? Where they come in and they're like, yeah, okay, we're just going to kind of do this, and that's the end of it. And they're like, oh, no. Here's all of the evidence that we have in this case. And that's kind of what she did, is she just laid everything out on the table. And you got to imagine that there's some people at the NCAA went, oh, wow, this is different here. Like this is a real line in the sand and digging their heels in type deal. I thought the depth of the letter is probably what stood out to be the most.
I would not quote a movie. I would quote the end of, I think it's season 2 of Yellowstone, when the guy's taking a shit and he doesn't want to die on the toilet, and he says, just not here, and he blows him away.
AP, you got to go further. When Casey asked him, he's like, you didn't expect my family to fight back? and the guy goes, nobody ever fights back, and then he shoots him.
Even better, Rob. Even better. Either way, the NCAA is dying on the shitter.
What a show. God. All right, we're going to end it there. That's a really good place to end. Big shout out to our friends over at Exterior Home Solution for allowing us to make these jokes, have some laughs, and talk Tennessee football, recruiting. Before we get into that, 524-5888, a free estimate. Brent Hubbs, there's never a dull moment here on Rocky Top. We got the NCAA investigation now coming. What's that notice of allegations look like when it comes in? Baseball is right around the corner. Basketball is happening right now. Junior Day this weekend. If you listen to the VolQuest podcast, just a teaser of everything that you can get over there at VolQuest.com.
Yeah, it's a great time to check us out. There's no doubt. And we're going to bring it to you in depths and layers that nobody else does. And we'll give you everything we find as we find it out, and work and dig on every answer to every question we can find, and cover every bit of news we can cover, whatever the case may be, from recruiting to games to off the field and administrative stuff as well. You're going to find it all at VolQuest.
Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, Rob Lewis. I am Eric Kane. Thanks so much for joining us here today on the VolQuest Mailbag Podcast.